Um, Thank you for coming to our second webinar covering the topic of offline AI, titled Supporting versus Doing Student Work, Experiments with Offline AI in the Classroom. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Elizabeth Childs.
Thank you so much, Harper. And thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to join us here. I am really excited to have Lee join us. He has been doing some great work in our course in our MA in Tourism and Hospitality Management program. So he's going to spend a lot of time talking about that today. And we're going to run it kind of like a fireside chat. So there'll be lots of opportunities for questions. So please don't hesitate to raise your hand to put it in the chat. I'll be tracking that. But before we really do that, I would like to turn it over to Lee to introduce himself to all of you. So, Lee, I'll turn off my mic and let you jump on.
Hey, thanks. It's kind of neat. This feels like the first day of course with a bunch of people that I don't quite know yet. So thanks very much for being here. My name is Lee Sentis. I wear a variety of hats, I suppose. I'm a contractor at Royal Roads University, and so I'm actually involved in a variety of different programs there. Everything from the BBA program, where I'm the acting program head for our project-based learning style BBA. Ask me more about that if you want to learn about that in another call. But also teaching the BCom, tourism, leadership, global leadership, sort of a variety of places. Probably the thing that binds it all together is something to do with organizational development, maybe within a lot of those different spaces. But it means that I get the joy of being able to see what works in one program and maybe shuffle it over to another program. And of course, the thing that the hot potato that everyone is talking about at the moment is, as my mother calls it, A1, until I corrected her and told her it was AI. And yeah, I've had a chance to use AI in a online or in a in-person and online setting in order to try and deal with some of the challenges that we're probably all facing. So we'll get more into that in a little bit, but I've been with Royal Roads since I'm going to guess like 2013, 2014. And prior to that, I was moving around and doing all kinds of work in all kinds of other places. Oftentimes with that thread of adult education, somewhere not too far from whatever I was doing. So that's me.
Super. Thank you so much, Lee. Um, Lee and I had a conversation a couple of months ago now where I said, I hear you're doing some really cool stuff in your class. Can you tell me a bit about it? And he started talking about it, and Harper and I were in the process of working on the offline LLM presentation that many of you may have seen. And I said, oh man, it would be so good if you could share that and the work you're doing, because one of the hardest parts that I find as I work with BC Campus on the Open Gen AI project is faculty need examples and
Yeah.
how are people doing this and what are they doing and how did it actually work and how much time did it take and
Mhm.
was it beneficial? So thank you, Lee, for coming to be willing to share all of that and more. And I thought maybe what we'd do is start by you just describing what did you do and why?
Yeah. I mean, even before that, if there are people here that haven't watched the first installment of this series, so the part one where Harper leads you by the hand through the installation of a variety of different models and really talks about how the kind of technical aspects of this. I encourage you to go watch that. It is excellent. It leads well, hopefully, into what we're going to talk about here, which is going to be more of a practical demonstration and reflections on what actually happened within the classroom. So, um, my guess is that if I ask the question, put your hand up if you love being the police officer in your course, especially the AI police officer. Like if you were born with three hands, you probably have three hands up in the air right now. That was the genesis of it. Really just being tired of having to play whack-a-mole with with products that I saw coming in from students where I either was deeply suspicious of whatever was being written and handed in, or I knew for a fact that it was AI generated or at least helped, because the words that would come out of a student's mouth if I were to talk to them would not at all align with what was being, handed in as an assignment. And, how many hours do any of us want to spend doing that? So, what I've attempted to do within this one course um, really has kind of two different things or two different elements to it, or two different reasons for doing it. The first was to rethink the assignment and assessment process so that less emphasis was being put on written assignments. Because as far as I was concerned, especially with the very international group of students that I had in front of me, I was basically setting myself up for receiving a lot of AI related stuff. That's not to say that this is just an issue and challenge with international students. It's across the board. But I think there's also a particular, there's stresses within our international student cohort, which are different from our domestic student cohort. Stresses from family expectations, trying to get PR, all of this, which means jumping to a solution which is maybe a little bit easier or quicker it's just more tempting. So I wanted to be able to set up something which rethought and redesigned the assessment process so I could really understand, do you have, can you do the things that I'm asking you to do? Can you demonstrate that you've internalized or ingested some of the skills that we're talking about across this whole course? Um, the second bit, and I'm not sure how well the second bit actually worked, but my hope is that by incorporating AI into the classroom, it actually helped to scratch that itch. There's a lot of students where, they will go to ChatGPT the same way that probably, so I'm 53. So probably most people in my cohort, the first thing they might do is go to Google if they're searching for something. They're using the chatbot as the search engine. And I get it, but the challenge there is that it immediately embeds you then right inside that ecosystem, right? It's really hard to get out. And so a lot of students won't even necessarily consider that using AI with my assignment. And trying to enforce that 100% this is forbidden, don't do it. That's where you end up in that situation of trying to police. So I'm trying to show students that, look, these AI agents, they can do pretty cool stuff, um, and can be really useful to your thinking and your workflow if you use them. I don't properly, I guess, is maybe the way that I'm trying to think about it, or appropriately is maybe a better word. There's a lot of students that know how to write a good prompt and can even do basic research within ChatGPT and whatnot. What I wanted to do was give them maybe deeper skills. So I also really dislike the idea of all of my information and all of my students' information going to feed some big machine somewhere. I greatly dislike the idea that there's huge environmental impact that's coming with this new technology that nobody seems to be terribly bothered about. The fact that it's being injected into every piece of software and hardware that we have at the moment means that we sometimes don't have a lot of choice. This is what got me interested in the offline AI models. So what I'm going to show you and demonstrate today is how that got incorporated within this tourism course. I'm going to show you the model in action, and yeah, we'll kind of see what it comes up with some live prompts that we'll feed it, and you'll see what it looks like in practice. Is it perfect? No. Is this like first step in a whole process of learning? Yes. I think one of the good questions is like, well, how long did this all take to put together? Um, I did a deep rewrite of were 4 assignments that were part of this course. Many of them were very writing based. Assignment 2 in particular was like a 2,000 word business plan, basically. And I stripped all of that back in order to come up with different assessment processes. The different assessment processes are kind of married to this inclusion of AI, but it is sort of a separate issue. If we get to that, I'll talk about it, but I'm going to focus mainly on the AI stuff for now. Um, so this course is all about designing social enterprises. And if within 11 weeks, basically the students go from I've never heard of this term before through to here is a social enterprise that I've designed. I put a very artificial architecture on it. So I've forced them to have 50% of your thought and focus within that organization needs to be focused on making money. 50% needs to be on helping people or the environment. But it's up to them to come up with the idea of what they want to do. And where I thought AI would be really useful here is that if I look at the students that I've got in front of me, so I had probably, I'm going to say 25 students. I don't think any of them were domestic. I had people from India, from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Bhutan, South Africa, Hungary, like all over the place. Um, One of the challenges when you are doing anything that is design related and you're trying to design for someone else gets you into that trap of how do I stop designing something which would work for me? So if I'm designing a social enterprise, I'm not the customer, I'm not the user or anything else. I need to design it for someone else. When I talk to these students from past cohorts, the level of kind of work expertise was very varied. Some people had, because these are tourism students, I'd say probably 70% of them had some kind of I have worked in a hotel at some capacity experience. But there was also quite a chunk of people who I have never had a formal full-time job. So the that means that they're seeing this social enterprise build through a very narrow or uninformed lens. And especially once we switch our lens to the social and environmental impact, especially the social one, a very different idea and conceptualization of poverty, of the we talk about the Victorian concepts of like the deserving poor and the undeserving poor. These things are still embedded within a lot of, including our culture and society. And so it makes it hard for them to, how do I know if what I'm designing is actually going to work for the people that I'm designing for? It's also very difficult with, if you've ever been to the Royal Roads campus, it's very pretty, it's lovely, especially the Colwood campus, and it's incredibly isolated. You're not going to walk off of campus and get into some kind of urban environment where you can talk to people. So I figured here's a situation where maybe we can get AI to do a couple things. One, to be kind of a guide, ask good questions, critically probe whatever idea these students are generating over these 11 weeks, so that when I'm not there, they can still go to something and get some good prompting questions to make them think about their design. And also, through the assignments, if I can get the students to design personas, then they can feed those personas to this AI agent and say, act like this person that I just designed and ask me questions about my social enterprise. And it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than trying to get someone who has simply never thought about people living different lifestyles, different environments, even that this at least allows for some of that to happen. There are changes that I'll make to this when I go to run it a second time, but I would say for the students that really tried this, it came up with some really interesting results. And again, it's all offline, it's private, their data isn't shared with the big mothership. None of that happens. You can actually turn the Wi-Fi off on your machine and still run these things. The models I use are small. They're under 1 GB. You don't need those massive, monstrous, I can make you a video LLMs in order to do something which is actually pretty insightful. Again, it comes with a caveat that this thing doesn't know what it's saying. It's a prediction engine. It's saying, well, from everything that I know, these words seem to go in this order. We never got to the stage of it telling you to put glue on your pizza, but it's always a possibility. So like, there's no perfect thing here, but that's kind of the setup.
So, Lee, thank you for that. There's a question, and I think probably as you go in
Mhm.
to show us, it'll be clear. But Manisha asks, they teach third year social work students and
Mhm.
have them write a case assignment, real life scenarios, but not real names of people. So could
Yeah.
a case be a persona? And I'm wondering if maybe if you wanted sort of show your screen and we can and walk
Yeah.
us through what you did, then you can also speak to that question as well.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, great idea. Let me show you the worksheet that the students would have all produced. So I'm a big fan. Sorry, I don't mean to make anyone ill, but I'm going to scroll very quickly up to the top. I'm a big fan of templates, especially when I want to have a bit of predictability as to what I'm going to get. And I'm not sure that everyone's English comprehension level is exactly the same within the class. I find the template just makes it easier. So this is what was going into the template. A brief description of their social enterprise research, because I need them to go and do research. Then a generation of 2 personas, and then a collection of the AI system prompts. So this is a real example. This is probably the best one that I saw. I'm not going to go through all these sections. But you can see there's the social enterprise at a glance. This was for it's a social enterprise that was focused on um, getting rid of used furniture and helping other students be able to access used furniture at a cut rate. It was more involved than that, but you don't need to know the details. So if we scroll down past all of the research that they did, so each one of those sections is a different source. Here's the persona template that they would have filled in. Now, I came up with this off the top of my head. This is not rocket science stuff. If you're a marketer, you're probably going to look at this and say, "Oh, Lee, you suck because you didn't have AYZ in here." You're right. I probably didn't. But for the purposes of what I need the students to do, this was fine. Um, so they write some detail here, who they are, what kind of occupation, what are their pains and gains, and it all ends up in this paragraph right at the end. So describe this persona to someone. Now you'll see how I'm going to take this block and I'm going to put it into this into something called LM Studio, um, and use that to temper the type of response that you get out of the AI. But that was the goal, is that I want them to think about who could be a customer for their space and who could be a beneficiary of their space. So to try to, again, balance that very artificial architecture of making money, but also doing something which is helpful. So this person's got 2 personas. and each of them ends with a block of text, which is kind of like a summation of what that person could be. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen, and I'm going to bring you over to the program I actually use for the AI model stuff. Now, if you watch Harper's presentation from the earlier one, he does a great job of talking about a range of different AI programs that can host a variety of AI models. The one that I'm using is LM Studio, simply because it works well on my machine. I run Linux, and most of you are probably running Windows or Macs. If you don't know what Linux is, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. Jan, which is the other program, which is maybe a little bit more user-friendly than this one, I could not get it to work on in Linux. So there you go. But to give you an idea of what my machine is, this is a 2019 i5 8th generation. So you can think about this as a near obsolete, mid-grade back in 2019 laptop powered computer, right? It's the exact same as my secondhand business computer here. It's actually got exactly the same processor in it. There's no GPU. There's 16 gigabytes of memory. And it means that if in today's world, this is a very incapable machine, and you would not be able to buy anything this poorly spec'd at new anymore. And so that's important to think about, because the students that you're going to get, you know this, they've got a range of computers that they're going to bring into that space. The only thing that I am not sure how any of this would actually run and operate, the only operating system where I don't think it's going to work is a Chromebook, because a Chromebook is basically just a web browser on a very, very low spec machine, and it just isn't set up for this kind of work. Anything else? We were running this on 10-year-old Macs, on Windows machines, and all the rest of that stuff. LM Studio, it's about 1 gigabyte for the program itself. And then it's about less than 1 gigabyte, about 750 megabytes, I think, for the model that I've downloaded. So you can see all the models. Yeah, this one is 720 megabytes. It's a quantized version, which I don't ask me what all those terms mean. The main thing is this is teeny tiny. This could probably run on your phone. And I know there's a lot of worries that, oh, I need to be running really big models. And I'm going to show you that really you do not, in order to get some very interesting responses. Okay, so here's a prompt. I've staged this a little bit for us so that we can go through this fairly quickly. Hopefully you're able to see what's on the screen. I was a little worried that some of the writing was a little small, but maybe if you can boost your screen, you'll be able to see it. But I wanted to show you what the speed was for this. So I'm just going to copy this and put this down here again into the question. Press enter. And I haven't tempered this at all, right? This is like straight downloaded, and I've done the thing that the student who maybe kind of wants to cheat is going to do, which is put in the teachers asked me to design a social enterprise that sells something and helps someone else do it for me, right? And I'm showing you this mainly because I want you to get a sense of this is the speed. It's not as immediate as ChatGPT, but I bet you $1 that's about as fast as you can read anyways. So this is perfectly reasonable to me. My computer's, the fan's running, but it's not overheating. So I'm just going to stop this because this is not what we want. I don't want the computer to do this for me. I want to be able to control what the computer is doing. So there's a second chat here. And there's a section where you can put in a prompt. So the prompt here is telling the LLM how I want it to act. So you're an expert in developing social enterprises. Your goal is to help the student understand how to do it. You're not here to do it for them. That's the gist of this, right? You're just here to ask questions. You're not here to actually provide direct answers. I want the computer to step them through the process, not provide them an answer. So let's try it again. We'll take that same prompt, we'll dump it in here, um, press enter. It's going to say probably some nice stuff first because it's always nice. And you can like deprecate that niceness. Stop being nice to me. Like you can say that. So you'll see that if you put yourself in the headspace of someone where English is not your first language, yes, this is asking me questions, which is great. Location, where are you thinking of starting? What kind of coffee and muffins do you want to offer? So this is great, but it's also overwhelming. So I've got 5 questions there. I don't know where to start. So all I've done in this next prompt is I've added this one little thing here that just says, ask one question at a time. Okay, so let's go back. We'll put in that same question again. And I never know what it's going to ask. It always asks something a little bit different, but it's usually still pretty good. So, like, the thing that kills me, honestly, is this is exactly what I would ask at the front of the class. Yeah. What's the single most pressing need you see in your local community, and how could your business address it? Like, that's me asking that on the first day. And this is a tiny model that it's not some like social enterprise designed model. I just picked it because it was small. And it's really pretty surprising because that is exactly what I want the students to be thinking of. And so if they put in the next answer, it's going to walk them through. It's not giving them do this with your social enterprise, help in this way, measure it this way. It's just going to start prompting all of those questions. And this might not work for every field of study that you are involved in as instructors. But I gotta say, for these aren't wacky doodle questions. They're not outside of exactly what I would ask at the front of the class or even comment on within a written paper. And this allows the students to, you're only in class for 3 hours a week for this course. Well, in their at home time, they can be using this in order to help, in order to think through the work that they're doing, right? So that's really great. So if you let's go a little bit deeper. If if you notice that if you remember when I showed you that those different personas, I showed you that there was that little summation, describe the persona to someone. I don't want to stop sharing my screen and go back to it, but you probably remember it. So all I've done is go back to this is the Mr. Gene persona. I dropped what the student put in here, and then it gave me, so so there's the persona working in the system prompt. I then just dumped in here the student's explanation of what their social enterprise is all about. It gives a little bit too much analysis here, but it is kind of still interesting to have it rethink your ideas back to you. And then one thing that I didn't show you is that one of the appendix documents that this student provided were the prompts that she used. And so I just took one of her prompts and I've dumped it in here. I'm working on a social enterprise idea, which is rooted in my own frustration. It's a good prompt, and it's come up with a very good question. Let's start. Is this actually a legitimate problem? And that's a great question to sit there and it's like, yeah, actually, does that make sense to actually is there any point in actual how do I know that this is an actual problem? which is something that I force the students to do. It needs to be evidence-based. If you're telling me that it's addressing homelessness in Victoria, you better hit me with some facts and figures about what the homeless issues are in Victoria. So again, it doesn't have this LLM model doesn't have access to the internet. So it's not going to our place or social help organizations that are based here in Victoria and scooping data from there. It can't do that. It can only deal with the information that it's got. And so it's asking legit questions. And, if you follow this through by actually answering the questions that it gives you, you end up with a deeper uh, my hope and theory, let's put it this way, is that if you follow through with the questions here and you take it seriously as a student, the hope and theory is that you've got a much deeper product at the end where maybe you've been able to offset some things that I would flag immediately as, is this realistic? How do you know this would work? Um, how can you more clearly think about the impact that you're trying to have, let alone how you're going to measure it? So all of those things, it can get to that level. It's not going to be easy on you, is my point. So that's the really kind of cool thing to play with this. One of the things that I'm thinking of doing next is because you can dump that out of the program. You can just put it into a PDF. So I'm thinking, well, I want to know that the students have actually used this. So an appendix item of whatever their next assignment is going to be, it's going to give me the dump of prompts that you used and the stream of that whole conversation. That way I can see, did you actually do it? Because it's not easy. It's like it's work to actually sit there and work through these prompts. I want to see that you did it, and I want to see where you got, because that informs where I might nudge you in a different direction. But all up, it was really interesting to see the students work with this. It's not tricky as a educator to wrap your head around it. It's thinking about where might this be able to enhance and amplify the work that I do in front of the class, mainly around I'm not always there. Uh, and it's surprising to see how capable even the small models are with this kind of work. Does it mean that they're not going to ChatGPT? No, probably someone's still going to ChatGPT. So it doesn't solve that. But maybe it gets them, embedded within this little environment, and they're involved in their conversation to really unpick because once you get started with a chat, you don't want to necessarily abandon it. So that's the hope. Elizabeth, did you want to jump in?
I do. There's a few questions from the group, so we'll definitely
Yeah,
get to those. Um, Thank you for the context, but also just showing how you actually did it. And I'm wondering, just before we get to the questions, can you speak about how you introduce this to your students? So did you have to tell them to go to LM Studio and download it and download this model? Like what was the sort of the step by step that you gave them to
sure.
get them up and running?
Yeah, and it's easier to show you than it is to talk about it. So I'm going to just share the course page so you can see it. So anyone who's familiar with Moodle, this will look familiar. If not, this is just where we hold the information for our courses, both online and in person. You'll
I,
see down the side by here. Oh, there, now you can probably see it, hopefully. So you'll see that I've got a few pages here. We'll just skip forward to those pages. Um, the first one is, just asking students to honor the fact that I'm allowing them to use this AI model. I want them to use it, uh, but I don't want them to necessarily use other models, right? And just to try and say, please be honest, is really what this is saying. The other thing that I've got in here, and I didn't really use this as effectively as I could. I thought that I might be able to, on a weekly basis, tweak and change the prompt. As it was, I didn't feel that that really made sense, but that's something I might play with in the future. So I've just got a post here which allows students to actually get this is the exact same thing that was within the model. So if they erase it or tweak it or something. But what I ask them to do is when they are designing and when they're working with LM Studio, that this is the prompt that they're using. This is basically my ability to exercise some level of control over what kind of answer they're going to get within that space. And again, definitely could have continued this with new and tweaked versions of prompts. This one is just when I was introducing LM Studio to them because none of them had ever used offline AI models before. So we had to download it onto their machines and everything else. And then we would go through some sample prompts so that they could get a feel for what was happening. And then the last bit is really just a how to install, just in case someone forgot their computer and they weren't there in class. This whole process of getting stuff installed, up and running, I have a 3 hour block for my class, so I've got enough time to play with. I could see that you would be able to assign this as homework and get students to do it, but then you can't necessarily help them with weird stuff that appears on their screen, right? Um, so this is really just a FAQ section and then step by step with screenshots how to actually load it onto their machine. The one thing that's a bit tricky is that the version for Mac, for Windows, and for Linux, they look a little bit different. Some of the buttons are not exactly in the same place. Some of the terms are not exactly the same, which is really frustrating. But if you're able to do it in class, in person, everyone got the basic program, this LM Studio, and the specific model that I asked them to use, because it's only one model that I want them to download. All of that was uploaded and ready to go in about an hour. This totally depends on what your Wi-Fi situation is where you are, right? It might be faster, it might be slower. But even on machines that were running basically on hamsters, as opposed to machines that were, gaming laptops with all the newest whatever in it, it was about the same in terms of the whole installation. Pretty basic. LM Studio walks you through everything online. You can't install the wrong version. Um, and it's really easy to find the model that you're looking for, even if it's got kind of a nonsense name. You just get them to copy paste it in there, and away they go. So we didn't end up with any real technical problems, but have something engaging that you're going to do while the while this thing is downloading, because it's about an hour to get everything up and running.
Lee, thank you for that. We've got some really great questions in the chat. So I'm going to just sort of piggyback onto what we were just speaking of, and then we'll go back and work through them all.
Sure.
You mentioned that LM Studio, it's pretty straightforward. You follow the directions. There's a question about if we wanted to create our own um, LM model, where would we learn how to do this? Is there a beginner course somewhere? So just to clarify, this is offline
Yeah.
LLM models, right? This is different than creating a ChatGPT agent or
Yeah.
creating your own ChatGPT. That this is not that. They are very different
Yeah.
things. But maybe
And
can you speak to how did you learn how to do this?
yeah, well, good question. Probably again, it helps to have a motivation to do it. It's hard if you don't have a use case. If you have a use case, if you can think about how and where this might be useful in one of your courses, that's probably going to temper you in terms of guiding you to maybe YouTube videos that are going to be useful, and see how other people have done it, or talking to people, and asking them. A lot of people have played with this stuff before. Um, and yeah, eventually you just I think I just watched enough YouTube videos. They were talking about LM Studio, tried it and found that the thing that I like about it is it doesn't matter what operating system you're using, it operates more or less the same. Um, the total time to actually figure out how I was going to incorporate this, it's kind of that piece of string question, but I worked on this over the Christmas holiday break. So it's probably about 3 weeks of really doing a deep redesign of this course, of which this incorporation of this AI agent was a part of it. So it certainly didn't take 3 weeks of thinking and doing. It the for me with AI, the hardest part is thinking about, well, that's really cool, but where the heck am I ever going to use it? I really struggle with finding a use case for it. Just like my mother, who's 86, struggles with why would I ever want to use the internet, right? So we just have whereas my 16-year-old daughter, it's like it's a no-brainer of AI use and all that. So it's just what you're used to, right? So don't be put off if you're not sure where to do it. I would question, I know I thought about that idea too of, oh, it'd be great. I'm going to make my own LLM, which is going to be fine-tuned to exactly what I want. It's going to separate out all the things I don't want. Um, and I think you have to do like just a cost benefit analysis there and say there's hundreds of different models out there, and there's new ones being spawned every day. Try a small one, try tweaking it with those system prompts. It's probably going to work just fine for you. The it you don't need to go through the heavy lifting of really trying to make your own. If you've got a specific, I did try uploading a open source textbook and try to pull information from that open source textbook. It really didn't work. Now that could just be the model I was using a year ago when this was being designed. Um, I don't know, but it didn't seem to work well for that. I think if that's what you're hoping to do, I would take maybe the essence of like a chapter. This chapter is talking about social determinants of poverty, and take the meat of that, chuck it into a system prompt and work it that way. It's probably an easier way than trying to figure out the techie stuff plus the ethical elements of potentially uploading something that you don't necessarily have the rights to use. So yeah.
Thanks for that, Lee. And that ties nicely into a question that Mary was asking, right? Could you upload or add other things into the model before you sort of released it? I think the thing to remember is this is a little bit different, right? This is an offline LLM. And so the model has been built, and then the system prompt is what helps constrain what you want to
Yeah.
do, right? So that's why adding it in through the system prompt might be the way to go. I know
Yeah.
the BC Campus Open Gen AI project, the tool that we're working on there, Opterna, is working to create, uploading all of these open textbooks so that then students can use it as a study companion. So it's a little bit,
Nice.
different than again, right?
Yeah. Call,
Um,
call me when you got that one ready because I want it.
yeah,
Yeah. That'll be
exactly.
great.
There are another few questions. Did you constrain the number of questions or interactions a student had with the model? My understanding is the further they get into a conversation, the more the drift happens, the more the hallucinations happen
Yeah.
from the original prompt. Did you see any of that, or did you constrain for that?
So I did not constrain for that. In fact, I'm not entirely, I'd have to look up how to. The will you get drift? Yes. In fact, when I was just putting some of this material together, even with the first question, it wasn't necessarily understanding the differentiation between a customer, a person who would pay for a service, and a beneficiary, someone that might benefit from the social enterprise. That was, if I simply asked the question again, it wouldn't come up again, right? So it's, it's being able to see what it's producing and understand where it's giving you misunderstood data. The way I explained it to the students is like pretend you're sitting down having coffee with someone, and they're not always 100% going to follow what your conversation is. You might have to put it a different way a few times in order to get the kind of information out of your friend that you're hoping for. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Mary, to your question, my understanding, and I've just put the link back to Harper's presentation on the offline Gen AI models because he does speak to this a little bit. One of the things about the offline is you're getting less of that hallucination, less of that drift, but it still happens.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and this is maybe a question for you, Lee, did you refresh the model, right? Because the model, once you've downloaded it, that's it. It's static. It's not constantly updating itself. You have to go back and update it. And so did you do
Yeah.
that over the period that you used it in the course, or you just used the one that was downloaded on January 4th or whatever?
We just used it. And what was interesting is that my first, let's test it's working kind of thing was who's the Prime Minister of Canada? And it would say Justin Trudeau. And I'd type back, no, no, it's Mark Carney. It's like, nope, sorry, it's Justin Trudeau. And then you look at the date of when that AI model was created. And of course, it was created before Mark Carney became Prime Minister. Now, if what you are doing in class absolutely depends on bleeding edge, newsworthy, it's happening today, it happened yesterday material, then what I've just shown you might not work. Now, there are models even within LM Studio where you can permission it to access the web, which is cool. And you can play with that. And it allows for the model to go externally, find information, presumably current information, and bring that back. So I haven't played with that because I don't need it. Um, when it comes to this particular model, you don't need up-to-date, happened yesterday information in order to ask a question about social enterprise. It's got enough information in its guts somewhere that it knows enough that it's going to be helpful. So it really depends on what it is you're trying to do. For some of you, the best option really may be a fully online model to do really up-to-date analytical things. If you're analyzing Trump's um, um, visit to China yesterday, and you're looking for analysis on that and impact of on trade or Taiwan or something, right? Well, then you want the most up-to-date information, and this is not going to satisfy that because it'll factually get those things. It'll be timestamped to whenever it was born, and it doesn't know anything beyond that. So that is something to keep in mind.
Thank you. We've got a question from Roland, and Harper, you may want to weigh in on this one too. How do you accommodate students who are conscientious AI objectors? They object because of the negative impact of large data centers on the environment.
It's a great question. Maybe I'll give 2 seconds to reply to that, and then I'm going to turn over to you, Harper. The I didn't have anyone in class objecting to this. I had, I would say, probably out of the 25 students, there were probably three or four who were aware that there was some kind of impact. And I maybe had one or two who were clued in enough that they could actually articulate what that impact could be. But it was not. it's not top of mind for the students that I had in this course. Other courses, yeah, I can see that being a real issue. And it would be in my class, it would be this is an optional tool. If you object, you object, and that's cool. Know why you object. But it's not a mandatory, thou shalt use this. And that's probably the way I would approach it. Harper, do you have anything that you wanted to jump in with?
Sure, yeah. I can't speak on the, you know, s student-teacher relationship or teaching aspect of that because that's not something I've done. But just in terms of the environmental impact and the conscientious, objector kind of standpoint, um, I think maybe bringing up and explaining how um, the offline AI is different from the big online like ChatGPT and stuff might be helpful if not necessarily to convince them to use the tool, but just to inform them of one of the perks and the benefits of the offline AI stuff is that it's just running on your machine. And so, whereas with the like ChatGPT and Claude and stuff, what happens is that you are interacting with the this really big model, and it sends all your interactions are done kind of through the cloud, and then it's processed in the big data centers that people tend to object to, and then it's sent back to you. Whereas with the offline stuff, you're using smaller models, so the just like amount of power and processing is automatically way smaller than the
Way
like
smaller.
trillions of parameter models. Like we're using
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like Lee, you said you're doing like a 1 billion parameter model. So
And
like,
and I am right now at this moment, I'm using 43 watts.
yeah.
So I've got the model running, I've got a web browser running with tabs open, and I'm doing a live Zoom call. So,
Mhm.
these things, they're not huge power suckers if you're using them like locally.
Mhm.
Definitely there's challenges about how it was put together and produced, and where it got its information from. That's just an astounding concept that I'm amazed that I'm sure the lawsuits are lining up, but things like what Elizabeth is doing with her whole project, it's to me that's the answer is let us feed the open source information there so that we at least can cross that ethical issue off the checklist. But in terms of actually running the model locally, yeah, it's just sipping at power. And it a student might object, and then the next thing they do is they're playing Cyberpunk 2077 through their Steam Deck and using a colossal amount of processing power all over the place. So I don't know that the students necessarily have got all the pieces in their heads too when they latch onto these things.
I think that's, this is such a space for educate and inform, right? As
Yeah.
we all navigate it. Um, Lee, there's a question from Joe earlier when you were
Mhm.
talking about creating the prompts,
Yeah.
and had the diagram up of people filling in, answering all those questions. And so the question was that GPT could write that too, unfortunately. So are
Mhm.
you writing the prompts for them? And are the questions sufficient to be a prompt, that gets collapsed? And Joe, I may not be doing your questions justice, so please feel free to come on the mic if you would like to.
Yeah, it's is there a 100% way of rooting out all cheating here? No. We do spend time within class talking about the prompts. They work, together in teams and pairs in order to test their personas against one another. I give them as much information and background as I can from like any social geography background that I've got and international development and all the rest of it of like how what our social issues, and how do they show up, and how do we articulate it, and all of that stuff. So there's never, I can't find a way to fully weed out someone who really is determined to cheat. I think one of the things that's kind of good about the template is there isn't as much pressure to put things into perfect English. I'm not marking for perfect English. So you can see that what's written there within some of the prompts are actually probably what would come out of that student. And that makes me feel a little bit more relaxed that this is probably legit. Um, the prompt that I designed, that probably took about an hour of tweaking and changing. And you can always tweak and change that in order to try and get it to act the way you want. And even with this document that I showed that had those prompts on it from the student, I should have shown it to you, but I've already closed it. But you can imagine there's probably about a page and a half of different prompts that this student used and was very kind to share those with me. So that I can see that it's it's her. I could tell that this was her. It's got her cadence to it and everything else. It's not even grammarly perfected. So yeah.
Thank you. I'm noticing the time. There is a feedback survey that Harper put in the chat for those of you who might have to go, but we also have a few questions still. So if you're able to stay, please feel
Sure.
free. We'll spend some time answering those and keep the recording on. So if you do have to go, you can listen. Anita wanted to know how you decided which model to choose. There's so many to choose from.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, there's tons. Um, the big um, deciding factor for me was I do not want to sit there and type a question and then go make a cup of coffee while this thing has a deep think. And this was actually the problem when I was running Jan, even with a smaller uh, 2B model, so double the size of this one. Um, I put in a question. I think I just asked it like, "How are you?" just to see what it would, and it was taking forever. And it did. I went away, made a cup of tea, came back, and it just said LLM Roro. And I don't have time to try and decipher what that even means. And I want the students to use this. They're used to ChatGPT, so it's got to be snappy, right? So definitely the first thing was what with my computer specs, what's possible? And so I downloaded everything from a 7 billion parameter model all the way down to really small, really, really small ones, 200 megabytes, and found that while the teeny tiny ones are cool and interesting, they're also really limited. And they're very fast, but they're just too limited. The 7B models, I'm getting like a word a second appear on the screen, and I just can't do it. So the 1B model for my machine seemed to work. And I would say that for any of the students' machines that I saw it working on, it was the same for them. We got the same level of performance, which was reasonable. And really, the only way to figure it out is to test it. It really also depends on the type of research and query that you are wanting to engage with. Some models won't go in certain places and just will tell you, I'm not going to answer that. If that's where your research needs to go, or that's the persona of who you need to adopt, then again, you're going to have to experiment and find models that are actually working for you. So it will take a few downloads, but don't think that you need it to be huge. Huge just means it's going to be really slow to install in the first place. And probably for most people, anything, above maybe a 3 or 4 billion parameter model is going to be just too clunky and frustrating. And it just means that they're going to say, heck with this. I'm just going to go take this to ChatGPT. Yeah.
Well, and I would encourage you, I put the link in there again, just the part one of this series where Harper explains the offline LLM. There's a great table in there for
Yeah.
people like me who like tables are like, okay, if these are your computer specs, this is what you're trying, here are the models, so it might help narrow down a little of the choice that's out there.
Totally. I should have watched that first. I mean, it didn't exist, but it would have been very, very useful. So I really do encourage everyone to watch it.
Just a few more questions. One around assessment.
Hmm.
Do you have any suggestions for how to assess assignments and
Yeah.
use of AI as a criteria? Did you have that built into your rubric for this assignment, this activity, or
No, what am I looking for? I'm looking for, I don't know where it went. So the way I did assessment, especially for this assignment too, where I went from a 2,000 word essay, um, the the students knew. So I did it as an interview. The students had each had their own breakout room. So we, sectioned off. We had two breakout rooms, and students would just sort of cycle in and out. Student would go in. They were able to create their social enterprise within that room. Some people put up banners. Some people put some stuff on a table, that kind of thing. I am going to enter into that room. I am going to roll a dice. And depending on the number, that is who I am. I'm either a customer. If I'm a two, I'm a beneficiary. If I'm three, I'm a board member. If I'm a four, I'm a funder. So they have no idea who I'm going. I don't know who I'm going to be when I walk into that space. The students aren't allowed to have any computers or phones in that space while I'm talking to them. And for 15 minutes, I'm going to adopt that persona and basically suck their brains dry of everything that they can tell me about their social enterprise geared towards me as this persona. And it means that I can sidestep the issue of I don't know who wrote this paper, and so I don't know whether the student actually knows this stuff or not. B, this isn't a writing course. It's not an English language proficiency exam or anything else. So, like, I'm marking the wrong things if I'm saying your sentence doesn't make sense here. How could you express this differently? Or, you know, you have a hard time getting through a sentence when we talk, and yet I've got like, Pushkin here, I've got like this beautiful, beautiful text. Where did it come from? I don't have to go through any of that. I'm there in the flesh. They need to prepare for every eventuality. They can use the LM Studio for that. Ask me questions about, here's my social enterprise. Ask me questions about it as if you just walked in my store as a customer, and they can practice with that so that they've got some idea of what kind of questions are going to come up. And it was very insightful. I saw, because students had the option to work in teams of up to three. I saw the team members who really dug into this and really knew what they were talking about. They could articulate it in the moment, even if it's not perfect English. Who cares? They could explain to me what this organization was about, how it was values based, how it wasn't greenwashing, all of that stuff. They could do it, and I could tell the students who didn't know what they were talking about at all and couldn't articulate anything. So the same depth of assessment in terms of, can I be sure that you actually know this material? Can I see that you're demonstrating the skill that it would take to describe what this organization is about? I could do it in an afternoon of like, 10, 15 minute interviews. So I'm definitely going to use that, especially the randomization was also really, really useful because they had to prepare for anything.
right, right. I'm going to take one more question because I think there's one
Sure.
still in here that we don't have, and then conscious of people's time. And Harper, you may have, based on your work, you may also want to weigh in on this one. Suman asked, is this safer for students who are conscious about them being recognized and remembered by the invisible system? This could help
Oh,
win their confidence to use it as a support rather than an ease for their work.
it's actually a really good question, especially if you're dealing with international students. You don't know what the situation is for them back home. You don't know what the situation is for their family. Um, they're here for a reason. Something has prompted them to come to Canada. It might just be looking for, I like Canada, I always wanted to go there. For other people, I need to get a toehold because I need to get my family out of wherever. So it's a very real challenge for some students. They're not going to tell you, right? So there's also that domestic students too. We'll get to that because that's a good one. The the beauty of doing this offline is that you can run the test with the students of everyone put on airplane mode on your computer. Keep asking it questions, and it'll keep running. So it's not dependent on internet access in order to do anything. Now, if you are really particularly worried about your online security, your online identity, um, there's probably nothing that anyone's ever going to say to you which is going to make you feel 100% comfortable, right? And you're probably also, trying to mask as much as you can, which is basically impossible now, your online presence from your phone to everything else. And they'll be the experts in that because they've got to do it, right? So yes, I can see it being an issue. This to me is way safer than using models that are maybe designed in your home country, where it might not have a very friendly government towards you and your family, where who knows what information is being scrubbed. You just don't know. Um, can I guarantee that because LM Studio is proprietary, it's not open source, can I guarantee 100% that there's nothing going back to the mothership? I can't. There might be some telemetry, what type of computer you're using, what type of thing you downloaded, but you just don't know. It's way more private than using ChatGPT. I mean, ChatGPT, it'll remember stuff from, months ago that you prompted it, and that's either fantastic or deeply alarming, depending on your point of view. I don't know, Harper, do you want to come in with any other technical elements of that?
Yeah, so I agree with you that it is definitely safer in terms of information privacy than the commercial models online like ChatGPT and stuff. Um, because yeah, like we're not 100% sure how much information they're scrubbing, what kind of information, where it's stored, who it's going to. Um, so with the another advantage of the offline models and using the software offline is that like you said, like there might be still stuff, information going back to like LM Studio, like your computer specs or something. Um, but the amount of information that would be going back to any sort of place is like way less than with the online stuff. And then also to your point, when you are if it's a really big concern and you just want to work offline, like the only times you use it are offline, like that drastically reduces any chance of any information, any personal
Hmm.
information going back to, the company that, owns the software or anything like that. And then also even just in terms of the models, that the model itself is not going to be doing anything with your information like it has because it's downloaded directly on your computer. And as you said, like when the model is born, that's all the information it has, and it has like the little bit of context window, that so that it can remember kind of what you said previously in your conversation. So it's not just, kind of has amnesia and just like forgets everything.
Hmm.
But that in regards to that, that it also makes it kind of safer in regards to personal information that the model's not going to remember and store the stuff that you've talked about and send it back to, um, its parent company because it just can't because it's
Hmm.
downloaded on your computer. It's not big enough to do something like that. And also it depends kind of on the um, privacy policies of whatever app you're using. So, for example, LM Studio is a proprietary software, so they might have a bit more overhead of changing their privacy policies and stuff, whereas some other software, like Jan or GPT for All, they're open source, so they're less likely to have that desire to have your personal information because they're like an open source it's an open source software, and the
Yeah,
developers don't care
people
really.
can look at the code and say, "Oh, you're scrubbing data here. Why are you doing that?" Right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, the challenge is you go walk down the street carrying your phone and go to Thrifties and buy a banana. Well, with your credit card, like, you know, you just you gave a ton of information j just from doing that, probably more than anything that you're going to send from LM Studio. So, it's all in proportion. We don't live
Mhm.
in a private space anymore. We've given that up for the convenience of the technology that we've got around us. Nobody asked us, but we've all also, jumped on the bandwagon. So we're all to blame. But it is a real the issue of privacy and security is it's there in the background, no doubt.
Well, I think I have covered all of the questions that were in the chat. Thank you, everyone. Just a really big thank you, Lee, for taking time to walk us through your thinking, to show us what you created, because I think often, even you were saying, like, it's hard to see the possibilities in the use cases. And then when you actually see one, you're like, oh, I could do that maybe with my case studies or my with this or
Hmm.
with that, right? So thank you. Thanks for being open to sharing and to making time for this session.